How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from WeatherSpawn 5000, and in this video, we're going to talk about the possibility we could see a Christmas snowstorm for the Northeast, where it seems like the computer models have been very persistent on the idea over the past few days. They've been going on and off with the idea of bringing a snowstorm to the Northeast, but for the most part, they've stayed on track regarding bringing the possibility of some sort of snowstorm to this area. And we clearly see that on December 22nd, on a Sunday, just before the Christmas time frame, we do see a major coastal Northeast snowstorm that's bringing heavy snowfall, not just the interior Northeast, but the coastal Northeast cities as well. So Boston, New York City, and Philadelphia would get involved with a scenario like this. Not just get involved, but potentially we could be talking about over a foot of snow in a scenario like this. And continuing to move forward with the forecast, we see the storm system only intensifies even more, as this is just a straight up major winter storm for the coastal Northeast, pretty much impacting all the major cities in the most populated areas. And continuing to move forward with the forecast, we do see that it's just gonna move relatively slowly as well, because a negative tilt could develop with the jet stream, where the jet stream positions itself to where the wind direction will move slightly from a southeasterly direction, which means that the storm system will take a slight easterly direction before eventually westerly direction before eventually moving to the east, which typically prolongs the impacts you see when we see a negative tilt like that associated with a snowstorm. And this is exactly what we see right here. So if we were to take a look at the forecast hour, we're still quite a bit far out. I'm going around 200 hours out, so that's approximately right around 8 days out. However, it seems like the computer models over the past few runs have been leaning more and more towards this idea, and I could say with almost high certainty that there's going to be some sort of jet stream dip that's going to impact the eastern United States by the time we approach the Christmas weekend time frame. So now that we have that set in place, or at least have a little bit more certainty regarding this jet stream dip occurring, that definitely raises a possibility we could see a snowstorm in the Northeast by around that time frame. So there's still a lot to go over with this forecast. The key thing will be the timing of the ridging, as well as the low pressure system moving in, because that will be key in determining if we'll see enough instability for this storm system to develop, and if this storm system will be able to move south enough to where it could impact a lot of the Northeast, some more populated areas of Northeast. Now, if we were to take a look at the European model also is bringing somewhat of a similar forecast. It's definitely not identical, but it's at least bringing the same idea regarding this jet stream dip, as well as bringing the possibility of a Clipper system moving in, which should enhance the instability and the possibility of snowfall throughout the Midwest. So if we were to take a quick look at that, let's take a look at the 12Z run of the European model. So we see that both the European model and the GFS model are agreeing that there's going to be a trough that moves through that's going to bring a strong northerly flow for the jet stream to dip southward and bring that Arctic air to the eastern United States. That seems to be the idea that both of the computer models over the past few days have been agreeing on, and we clearly see continuing to move forward. This does bring quite a bit of cold air right over this area, and we do see that while there isn't anywhere nearly as much of a significant snowstorm as what the GFS model is stating, as it seems like this low pressure system is a little bit too far to the east, and the timing isn't 100% correct. A big reason why the European model does not want to develop a major winter storm in this scenario is that this low pressure system doesn't move far south enough, although it does bring a strong northerly flow. The GFS model brings this low pressure system far south enough to where it could tap into that very warm Atlantic Ocean water temperature, as well as interact with this low pressure system off the Atlantic coast a little bit more for the instability to exist for a major winter storm to develop. In the European model scenario, this low pressure system is a little bit too far north. We're going to have to see that move a little bit further southward before we can say the European model also agrees with the GFS model model, and for the certainty to be higher for a major winter storm for the Northeast. A big reason why is because the European model at this time expects a bit more ridging to block this low pressure system from being able to dip further southward and interact with this other low pressure system that's just off the east coast. So the key thing will be the amount of ridging that's going to be located at around this time period. And if we were to compare it to what the GFS model is stating at around the same time period, so let's move forward to this. We do see the ridging is quite a bit weaker, and that allows this Clipper system to move far south enough to be able to interact with this very warm environment located right around the east coast and this low pressure system that's expected to move in, and that allows this storm system to rapidly intensify. We also see enough ridging just to the east of this storm system to be able to enhance that instability, because sometimes a thing that does happen is while there could be a significant jet stream dip in the eastern United States, sometimes in certain scenarios there just isn't enough ridging just to the east of it to bring a strong southerly flow to enhance the instability associated with the jet stream dip. So we just see cold and dry conditions during scenarios like that. That isn't the case here, at least with what the GFS model is stating. It does expect just enough ridging to enhance that instability and a major winter storm to develop. So the key thing will be the amount of ridging that builds right around this, right around the southeast by the time we approach the weekend of Saturday, December 21st. As look at the forecast where I'm going at, while it's still relatively far and there's still a lot of uncertainty with the forecast, this isn't a crazy far out forecast, which makes me believe we will see some sort of jet stream dip right around that time period. It just depends, of course, the position of this low as well as the strength of this ridge that's going to be to the south of it. That'll be key in determining that. And you're probably wondering, well, what will determine the strength of this ridge? So a key thing that I've been paying close attention to is just the overall amount of ridging these two computer models are expecting, not only by the time we approach the weekend of December 21st, but even well before that, even into the middle part of next week. That'll be key, because if we see the GFS model's forecast right around Wednesday, December 18th, we see mostly a strong amount of ridging throughout the United States. We do see a small pocket where there is a small upper level low located right around the Rockies, as well as another trough that's okay just to the north of it, bringing a little bit more of that cold air further southward and enhancing that instability for a more potent jet stream dip to exist, as that's exactly what we see here. A stronger low encounters a strong ridge, and that creates a stronger northerly flow to weaken the ridging just to the south of it and enhance the amount of cold air that will exist in the eastern United States by the time we approach around the December 20th time frame. But the European model scenario, completely different. We see the ridging is much stronger, and if we were to move back to that same 102-hour time period that I showed you with the GFS model, the ridging is a lot stronger. We see that this upper level low is weaker in a scenario like this. The ridging is just much more dominant, so that reduces the amount of that strong northerly flow moving into the United States. So we're going to need to definitely keep a close eye on how the ridging builds over the next week. I'll say up until right around the 120-hour mark, we're pretty certain around what we could expect when it comes to the type conditions we'll see in the United States. It just goes beyond that point where it does become a bit more uncertain, and a big reason is because we just don't know the amount of ridging that will exist over the United States. However, what I could say with certainty is that there will be at least some sort of significant Arctic blast by the time we approach the Christmas time frame, and the key in determining if that'll develop into a major winter storm or not will be how far south that Arctic blast moves towards, and how much ridging is east of it, because there's still that possibility that maybe the ridging ends up being a little bit too strong or a little bit too weak to the point where we don't necessarily see snow along the northeast coast, and maybe the snow moves a little bit further westward, or the snow doesn't exist at all because the ridging is just too weak for that instability to exist. That's still in the realm of possibilities. However, at this point, I'm still expecting at least some sort of snowstorm by around this time period. We're just going to need to wait and see if it could be our next big northeast snowstorm by the time we approach that weekend, which I'll keep you guys updated, and we won't get a better idea until maybe the early part of next week. That around that time frame, I'm talking about Monday and Tuesday, because that's when we'll get a good idea of how much ridging will exist right over the eastern United States, which will play a major role in determining how far south this potential Clipper system right around the December 20th time frame moves. So I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. Now, let's say if the GFS model's forecast was 100% correct when it comes to the amount of snowfall it brings to the Northeast. Now, this would be very significant, and we clearly see that with its snowfall forecast, where many areas of Pennsylvania are experiencing over a foot of snow in this scenario. And then for pretty much the entirety of the Northeast, like everyone gets impacted in this, whether you're in the interior Northeast or right around the Boston area or the coastal Northeast cities, you are all getting involved. This isn't in a scenario like this won't be one of those scenarios where we're going to need to pay close attention to that rain snow line up the Interstate 95 corridor cities. No, all of you will get impacted in a scenario like this between Philadelphia through Boston, and even as far south as Washington, D.C., and into Virginia and West Virginia as well. And even as far west as Ohio could get involved. But throughout the Northeast, we're mainly seeing an area of 6 to 12 inches of snowfall. So this will downright be very significant. And this could bring your first white Christmas in a lot of these areas in a while. More specifically, right around where I'm located at in northern New Jersey, we haven't seen a white Christmas since December, or of course it's December, it's Christmas. Well, we haven't seen a white Christmas since 2009, so it's been 15 years since we had a Christmas where we've at least seen 1 inch of snowfall on the ground or more in northern New Jersey, which is pretty insane to think about. But this snowstorm, if the scenario of the GFS model is correct, we could see that occur in many areas of the Northeast. Now we see in the European model scenario, there isn't as much snowfall, and the snowfall is mainly relegated to the interior Northeast. Like I said, mainly because this trough doesn't move far south enough to bring that snowfall to the coastal Northeast cities. So we're definitely going to pay close attention to this. I think it's becoming more likely some sort of snowfall will occur right around the Christmas time frame for Northeast, or I should say more strictly right around the December 22nd time frame. It's just a matter of who exactly will experience that snowfall, and that still has yet to be seen. However, that's not the only possibility of snowfall throughout the United States, including the Northeast, because before that, we should see a trough move through that should be the primary catalyst in bringing some snowfall more thickly right around the interior Northeast and potentially the more western, or at least the southern Great Lakes region, where we see that if we were to move to the 130-hour mark, we do see this trough move through. There's the same trough that's expected to bring that major Arctic blast right around the December 22nd time frame to the Northeast. It's expected to bring snowfall on the back side of it. Now, this snowfall is a little bit less likely to impact the coastal Northeast cities because ridging will likely be still a little bit too strong, but certainly could bring a pretty heavy amount of accumulating snowfall in the areas further westward in the Northeast. Now, there's still uncertainty, of course, with this storm system as well, mainly because there's still a disagreement between the GFS and the European model regarding how much instability we should see right over the Ohio River Valley as well as the interior Northeast. But in the GFS model scenario, this would bring heavy snowfall throughout the western Northeast as well as the Ohio River Valley, or at least the eastern Ohio River Valley, right around the Thursday, December 19th time frame, as we do see a pretty large area of moderate to heavier snowfall. So you definitely want to keep an eye on this possibility as well. And then, of course, this should be the main catalyst for our next potential winter storm. Now, the European model, like I said, is showing a different scenario, mainly because instability isn't as strong around that time period. So let's take a look at the this run. So we see that the instability just isn't there for the storm system to be as powerful, because like I said, the European model in general is expecting a little bit too much ridging. So we virtually see almost no snowfall in the European model scenario associated at least with this first winter storm. So there's still uncertainty regarding that, but I'll make sure to keep you guys updated over the next few days. Just be prepared for an Arctic blast right around the December 18th through the Christmas time frame. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content, and I hope you guys all have a great day.